Sex is the life force energy that runs through us all. Can you use sexual energy for your spiritual evolution, or perhaps for emotional healing? Is it even possible? Clinical sexologist Dr. Martha Tara Lee will explore all these and more on Eros Evolution on Om Times Radio.
Hello, and welcome to Eros Evolution. This is where sexuality and spirituality meet. My name is Martha. I'm a clinical sexologist based in Singapore, and my company is called Eros Coaching. That's EROS coaching.com. In today's show, we will be interviewing my good friend, Jon Gosling, and the show title is all about getting in touch with yourself. Let me introduce the show today. We'll be discussing how we become disconnected from ourselves in modern society. This disconnection usually comes from external sources such as our parents, other close relationships, and society in general. Jon has been on a journey of self-discovery to learn what he truly wants and will be sharing his experience of his own journey to illustrate what is possible to achieve in anyone's life. His journey has included overcoming the dark experiences of addiction, anger, avoidance, bereavement, denial, despair, divorce, disconnection from his body, depression, emotional anorexia, loneliness, low self-esteem, sexual repression and dysfunction, shame, and touch isolation. That's quite a lot that he's gone through. And so who is Jon? Jon is a co-founder of Sacred Light Tantra and an energy healer. His journey in connecting with spirit energy and the essence of our physical body has brought him to see the body as a gateway to access expanded states of being. He sees that everyone's journey is unique and is pleased to offer different modalities to support individuals, couples, and groups in that journey to learn how to improve their relationships with themselves and the world around them. He also believes that we recognize and experience our own beauty and accept ourselves exactly as we are, both our light and shadow. We give ourselves from what we long for from others. Unconditional love. When we give this to ourselves, our dependence on others diminishes, whereas our capacity for love grows. A key part of loving ourselves is our relationship with our body. There are many ways to abuse, but one single way to love it. He sees a key gauge of how we relate to our body as is in our masturbation practice. And one of the ways he seeks to transform people's lives is through orgasmic yoga coaching. He's passionate about the nurturing power of touch and is a somatic educator, tantric practitioner and teacher, Reiki healer, spiritual medium, meditation teacher, certified sexological body worker, a trained sexologist, and somatic educator, and also teaches the law of attraction. You can find out more about Jon and his work by going to his website, nurturebytouch.cu.uk, and also sacredlighttantra.com. So welcome to the show, Jon.
Thank you, Martha, and thank you for that lovely introduction.
Thank you for coming on to today's show. It's been quite a while coming because I've been looking forward to having you on this show for several months now, and I'm very glad you're here. So from that whole mouthful that I've just said about your personal journey, could you describe more about it, like flesh it out more for us before when you turned spiritual?
Yeah, sure. I suppose looking at my life from the outside now, people would say that I was very successful. I had a lot of material things. I had a big corporate mainstream career. I had a lovely house, designer clothes, cars, international travel. And yet, deep inside, I was very, very unhappy. And it really took my father's death for me to realise what was actually going on in my life, and that really what I was feeling inside was a desperate loneliness and a detachment and a crazy desire to accumulate possessions and things and try and find experiences that gave me excitement, and yet whatever I did and whatever I accumulated, I felt unfulfilled. So when I realised that I was effectively living a false self and identity, I found myself in depression and had a breakdown as a result. And that really was the first part of my spiritual journey. I can elaborate a lot more if you would like me to go into that deeper.
Yes. So you also mentioned other things like divorce and emotional anorexia. What do you mean by that?
What I mean by that is that I was effectively numbing myself out, looking for the material to sustain my spiritual well-being. I was looking for, and I've really been doing this since childhood, of shutting down emotions, shutting down feelings, and so depriving myself of relationship nourishment as well, because I was, despite being married, I wasn't truly intimate in the sense of being open about who I was and what I felt, and was very, very vulnerable. And my way of trying to hide that vulnerability was to armour myself up and to starve myself of true human connection. I had lots of acquaintances, but no real true friends. And so, for me, emotional anorexia is really, really about self-starvation of intimacy and looking for other ways to get validation other than through opening up and being intimate with people. And I don't just mean sexually, I'm talking about true open relationship.
So when did that actually change? Hello? Hello, John? When did that actually change? Hello, John?
When my life
Sorry.
sort of came crashing down, and it came crashing down in a very big way. As I said, I had a breakdown. Realised that the relationships that I had weren't actually built on anything concrete, and were built on things that I perceived would be recognised in the world as desirable things. So I went and got things and built relationships from the point of view of having approval, and people recognising me for what I've achieved. And I was brought up very much in the realm of being successful, and to achieve things, to gather things, was the way to be. And when I realised that wasn't the right way for me, it was a big shock to my system, and I got to a place where I was suicidal, and phoned up a helpline and said that at the time I was 55 and felt that I wasted my life completely and not lived a life that was true to me. And at that point, the guy at the end of the phone said to me, look, people encounter this kind of realization at different ages. And it just so happens that this is your time for change. And people may change at 25, they may change at 35 or 45 or even 65 or beyond. But your time is right now. And as far as lifespan is concerned, who's to say a 25-year-old that decides to change will live another 5 years? It's possible that they wouldn't. Whereas you, statistically, certainly have another 20 to 30 years of life ahead of you, and you can do so much more with that. And those words really, really stuck with me, and kind of gave me a glimpse of light and something to aim for, and a belief that things could be different. So I went through psychotherapy. I was on antidepressants and medication, and was working my way through that. And I then lost my high-powered corporate job, and that also sent me into another downward spiral, because I just realised how much identity I got through my job. And I found that people that I considered friends were just people I worked with. And the relationship was a working relationship, and yet I had recognised it to be something deeper with those people. And again, it highlighted to me perhaps some of the shallowness of my own life, and the belief that my work was what defined me. And once that was taken away, who was I?
Well, thanks for sharing. We have a break now, and we'll come back after this break.
Very, very harsh in that particular way, because bit by bit my life was stripped away.
Yeah, we have a break now, and we'll come back after this break.
I started to actually feel very, very naked, and realised that...
Your conscious lifestyle on steroids. Om Times Radio. IOM FM. Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of Om Times Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of Om Times. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
Hi, I'm Kelly Fox, host and astrologer of The Astrology Show. Each week, I'll give you access to the current transits, which are a valuable tool that provide astrological information to help unlock the potential each of us has. Understanding the stars can help steer us in the right direction to make better informed choices. So if you're wondering what's going to happen in your week ahead, be sure to tune in to The Astrology Show for guidance, Mondays at 9 p.m. Eastern Time.
It's 6:42 p.m. Time for Steve Plato and his son Dylan to do the dishes. They talk about everything from the yuckiness of girls to the awesomeness of his soccer team. Sometimes they don't talk at all. Then, hey! The dreaded splash fight. It's Dad o'clock, and it's the best time of the day. Because the smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today. Call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Hello, and we're back from our break, and this is Martha from Eros Evolution. We are with Jon Gosling, and you can find him at nurturebytouch.co.uk, and also sacredlighttantra.com. So just before break, Jon was talking about his life before it turned spiritual, and he had experienced addiction, anger, avoidance, bereavement, denial, depression, divorce, disconnection from his body, depression, emotional anorexia, and loneliness, low self-esteem, sexual repression, and dysfunction, shame, and touch isolation. And so if, Jon, you can hear me, I'd like you to talk a little bit about what the differences has been in your life since then.
Sorry, Martha, I didn't quite get the question. Would you mind repeating it?
Yeah, I was asking you what has been the difference since after you turned spiritual.
Okay, so what I've found is that I was carrying a lot of trauma in my body, a lot of tension, which was really connected to repressed emotions. So I've done a lot of body work in terms of connecting with that.
Okay. And so the body work helped with releasing the trauma.
Yeah. And what I've done is not only body work but breath work, working with my spirit and physically with my body. And really I found that my body has been the key to opening up myself.
Okay. And so you must be a big believer of touch and body work, because that is the whole premise of your work. And what are some of the changes that you see in your clients who do this work with you?
Well, primarily, I suppose the big change is from people that are encouraged really in society to live a head-based life, and very similar to my experiences of living in the head. So my life is kind of reflected with the sorts of clients that I'm attracting. So what I do is to work with people from moving away from their thoughts and mind being them to actually connecting to what it actually feels like to be in their body. So it's changing consciousness. It's allowing people to change their point of perspective on who they are, and predominantly that's guided through working through the body.
And so when people talk about the mind, body, spirit connection as something that is a holistic approach, I suppose this is how you see it. Could you elaborate more about it so that it makes more sense to listeners out there?
Yeah, well, I prefer to, although you're quite right, people talk mind, body and spirit. I prefer to talk body, spirit and mind, because for me, putting the wisdom of the body first and using that as a gateway to connecting with spirit is my work's priority, and actually using the mind to create consciousness in terms of what is happening, and not thinking about what's going to happen or what's happened in the past, but being totally present. So it's a mindfulness body approach, and typically I would work with clients in a very simplistic way. Initially, it's just focusing on breath and sensation in the body.
Beautiful. I love what you're sharing about this. I wouldn't have really understood the difference, because I would think mind, body, spirit, spirit, body, mind, of them is one and the same. And I love what you're saying about body, mind, spirit, and the body being a gateway.
Yeah, I mean, in Tantra, often the body is defined as a bridge between heaven and earth, and even outside of spiritual circles, you hear the term the body is a temple, and therefore, if the body is truly a temple, then it's a place in which we should worship, and worship in the sense of not just being hedonistic, but worship in the sense of just looking at the sacredness of ourselves and honouring ourselves. If we can honour ourselves as beautiful human being, then we are truly connecting with our own essence and not the pressures from outside society. Again, we have an expression over here in the UK, which I hope translates to the rest of your listeners, which is listen to your body. And our body does speak to us. And in fact, we use language like, I've got a gut feeling, or I felt that in my heart. So there is an inherent wisdom when we let go of our minds, of just tuning to our bodies and seeing what our bodies feel. And by doing that, we can then not only connect to our bodies, but really what's in our hearts. And for me, what is truly in our hearts, when we take away all the shoulds and shouldn'ts, is what our essence is, what drives us, what motivates us, what is our purpose in life. And it's really that heart connection that is at the core of all of us. And if we can all work from a place of our heart and our heart feelings, then the world gets into a much better place, because we're all actually working from a very loving place.
Beautiful. I agree with that. I think more and more people are interested with connecting with their hearts and being love and light and being of influence to the circle of people that they know of. And being in their hearts is one of the places that will make us look, seem, and feel different to people around us. So in your work, you do a lot of energy work, and I suppose you would play with energy, and you need to be very aware of energy. So could you elaborate a little bit about what role energy plays in your work?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think one main way I use it, particularly with new clients, is that sometimes, or very often, they're not familiar with the concept of energy. And the way that I bring attention to that concept is to talk about sexual energy, because the vast majority of my clients have at some time connected with sexual energy and realize what sexual energy is and the feelings that can bring up within them. And again, it's not standard for everybody. Everybody has their own experience, but generally speaking, the vast majority of people that I've dealt with have been able to connect with this feeling of sexual energy. And when we start to explore what energy is in a sexual sense, we can then start to appreciate that it's really connected to our life force. And after all, sexual energy is life force. It's our creativity and a place of creation. And therefore, for me, the energy work that I do is very much geared with connecting that creative place, which is in the genital area, and particularly around the sacral chakra, to the heart. And so that we can connect our energy to our heart, and then from our heart up to the higher realms of spirit. So
in this show, I always ask about the link between sex and spirit, And I guess you more or less already answered it by saying that, in your opinion, that sexual energy is creation, is our creative energy, is our life force energy. And through your work, you help people connect with their genitals, their sacral chakra, their heart, and from there to move energies up to the higher realm. What do you mean by that?
Well, what I mean is that again, I work with the concept of the chakras, as I've already mentioned, and what I encourage people to do is to notice where and what feelings they have in those parts that equate to each of the 7 chakras, and often do some meditative practice where we will focus on specific areas and notice the feeling. So, for example, like a body scan meditation, which we may target certain areas and notice what feelings, what emotions are coming up. And so, if we're going to be in our life force flow, then we need to be aware where we may have some restrictions in our energetic flow, and by freeing up those restrictions, we can then start to be in flow and not release what's there, because I don't believe in releasing stuff. What I believe is in integrating it, and often there are parts of us which we may feel are holding us back. And the terminology of, well, let that go, you don't have to be that anymore. Actually, I feel that the journey is recognizing what that is and integrating it and loving it. And usually it's something that's probably come from our childhood, which at one point or the other actually served us because it kept us safe. And it's recognizing that aspect of ourselves in terms of being a small child, and then loving that small child and becoming a compassionate parent to them.
Beautiful. So I'm with Jon, and we'll come back after this break to talk more about his work.
Free your mind with Om Times Radio, IOM FM. Om Times Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. Om Times, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Hi, this is Julie Geigel.
And I'm Susan Schuler.
And I'm Carrie Ann Larson.
And we are
the Psychic Angel Channelers
from Angel Talk Tuesday.
Tune in every week at 10 a.m. Eastern on OmTimesRadio.com.
The angels have heard your call and are here to help.
Are you ready to receive?
Bathe in a beautiful vibrational frequency to help you heal, expand, and remember your magnificence with Angel Talk Tuesday.
There is no death, only a change of worlds. Chief Seattle. Deborah Livingston is an award-winning intuitive psychic medium whose international services include mediumship, spiritual assessment, animal communication, and spiritual mentoring. She is a published author and a trained shaman. Deborah provides evidential messages from spirit and departed loved ones. Learn more at deblivemedium.com. That's DEBLIV medium.com.
I want to thank my mommy for loving me so much,
for taking me to the doctor when I broke my foot,
for leaving me alone when I wanted to be alone.
And now, as a grown-up, I'm thankful for being able to take care of you, my dear mom, for taking you to your therapies, for understanding that sometimes you simply want to be alone.
Roles change without us noticing. That's why AARP gives you the information to provide even better care for your loved one. Visit aarp.org/caregiving. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
And welcome back. You are listening to Eros Evolution on the Om Times Radio Network. And you can share this show with your friends by going to the link omtimes.com/mobile. With this link, you and your friends will be able to listen to the show without needing to download any app. We are with Jon Gosling, and we are talking about getting in touch with yourself on Eros Evolution today. He's been talking about how he has overcome dark experiences of his life and turned spiritual. He does do body work, and he uses touch to help people to get in touch through the body with their spirit and mind. And because his work is very much with playing with energy, he is actually helping people to connect with their genitals, sacral chakra, and their heart in order to be able to get to meditative states and to replace it and live lives with integration. And you can find out more about Jon and his work by going to his website, nurturebytouch.co.uk, and also sacredlighttantra.com. Welcome back to the show, Jon.
Thank you, Martha.
Okay, awesome. So we had some sound issues just now, so I'm like super worried. I know that, Jon, you do feel that one way in which we can relate with our bodies is through masturbation practice, and you are seeking to transform people's lives through orgasmic yoga coaching. So I also teach orgasmic yoga and talk about orgasmic yoga, but I really like to hear from you how you coach orgasmic yoga, what orgasmic yoga is.
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, I must say I really enjoy your book, which is a fabulous resource for orgasmic yoga. And one of the things that really strikes me about orgasmic yoga and the real power for me in terms of my practice, because what I had to do when I trained as a sexological bodywork was to masturbate every day for 30 days and to keep a journal from it. And I started off from a point of shame about masturbation, some habits which were that it really had to be got over and done with quickly. In fact, it was something you only ever did because it was something you did if you couldn't get proper sex. In other words, it was a sort of a practice for losers. And so, masturbation had always been very furtive. It had been about orgasmic release, and wasn't really focused on the pleasure at all. It was just about getting that very quick fix of release and pleasure, and then moving on to do something else. Mm-hmm. And so what the practice did for me was to enable me to actually fall in love with myself. And so from my perspective, I'd often used the words and heard the words that masturbation was self-abuse. And where I ended up was that it was an act of self-love. And it was actually making love with myself. And that came from my heart and the intent of what I put into that practice. And moving away from, fantasy and porn into actually being into my body. And so what I do with clients is that I really encourage them and support them to make that journey of actually connecting to themselves with their heart. So it becomes a loving, nurturing practice. And, clients find that quite a challenge very often because they too come from a place of shame, particularly habit. And I connect with clients, and they tell me, well, I have this set fantasy, it works every time, and what then happens is that they get in a pattern. And actually, when they get into a relationship, a sexual relationship, very often those patterns then start to transfer. So I work with clients to say, actually, your orgasmic yoga practice is training for you to open up your heart so that you connect and feel good about yourself. And when you feel good about yourself, you're going to take those good feelings into a relationship. You're not going to come at a relationship from a needy place. You're not going to go with an empty cup or a begging bowl. You're actually going to feel full and fulfilled and not desperate. And so effectively, masturbation is actually about practicing new habits, changing that, and not doing the same thing over and over again, just experimenting and expanding and bringing your consciousness to it. And when you do that, you can actually take that into your sexual practice. So it becomes more like someone perhaps learning to play a musical instrument. So one practices on one's own. One may make some mistakes, but that's okay. And one plays and finds what works, and sometimes some things that don't work. But it's all part of the learning process. So when we meet someone, it's like joining a band or an orchestra. You can then play your instrument with another person and create some wonderful music.
Beautiful. So I love what you're sharing about orgasmic yoga and your thoughts about it, because it's actually exactly how I feel about masturbation and the orgasmic yoga practice. I feel that it has been a lot more challenging teaching people about orgasmic yoga who have penises than with people with vulvas. Would you agree in your personal experience? It seems to be that people with penises have a lot of more difficulties with seeing masturbation as an act of self-love. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would generally, and I think although I'm against making generalisations, but I am going to in this case by saying that generally speaking, people with vulvas tend to come at sexual activity from the heart and then connect to the genitals, whereas people with penises will tend to go from the sex and eventually connect to the heart. And again, with masturbation, for people with penises, the focus is usually immediately on the genital area, if not the penis itself. And so that ingrains a lot of habit and repetition and mechanical actions, and therefore it's very easy to pick up a habit of being. And an old football coach of mine used to say, practice doesn't make permanent, because we have a saying in English, it's practice makes permanent. Practice makes perfect. It actually practice makes permanent. So if you practice something, and it doesn't have to be masturbation, but anything, you end up picking up a habit, and that habit will stick. And in fact, neuroscientists are now saying that we can rewire our brains by changing habit. It is possible to change the neural pathways if we do that. And so I think for men, for people with penises, that actually often involves going straight to the penis, and as a result of that, picking up a habit which then is carried through. And habits can lead to all sorts of things, including premature ejaculation, as a habit you can pick up for certain kinds of masturbation practice.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. So we have 2 minutes to break. Could you sum up your philosophy on masturbation?
My philosophy on masturbation is love yourself and love your body. And if you go into practice with that philosophy of I'm loving myself, I'm loving my body, then a lot more becomes possible in terms of the way that you experience yourself and the way that you experience sex. So the primary thing is don't get stuck in a rut. Be open, and be open with your heart.
Yeah. Thank you very much for sharing this, because this is, I feel, the kind of modeling that a lot of men or people with penises don't seem to be receiving from their peers. And it's really refreshing to hear someone with a penis actually saying the importance and articulating it, coming back to the body and being connected to your heart as a way to love yourself.
Well, thank you for that. But I absolutely believe it. I'm very passionate about it, and I think that the whole problem is exacerbated by porn and the instant gratification culture that sits around not just porn but our whole society.
Yeah. So after this break, we can talk more about your opinion about porn and what you feel are the effects of it. So more after this break.
Bringing you the best of the conscious minds in the world. Om Times Radio, your conscious lifestyle on steroids. The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
Come heal yourself. What is healing? Healing is nothing but connecting with your all-knowing higher self that already has solutions to all your problems and is always there to guide you. Through this show, we help you to connect with that you are and tap into that innate potential you have to transform your life and fly high. Please join me, your host Monica Goyal, every Sunday, 7 p.m. Pacific. Namaste.
Hi, this is Christina Ricci with RAIN. Every 2 minutes, another American is sexually assaulted. If you or someone you know has been sexually assaulted, you are not alone. Help is just a call or click away through the National Sexual Assault Hotline. Please call 1-800-656-HOPE, that's HOPE, or visit RAIN.org, that's RAINN.org.
Brought to you by RAIN and this station.
And welcome back to the last 15 minutes of today's show. We're talking about getting in touch with yourself with Jon Gosling. And he is a Tantra practitioner, somatic educator, Reiki healer, spiritual medium, meditation teacher, certified sexological body worker, a trained sexologist, and a somatic educator. He also teaches the law of attraction. In today's show, so far, we've been talking about his journey, moving from hate to spirituality, his work as an energy worker, the importance of energy, the use of sexual energy, his opinion about what the link between our sexual energy and spirituality is. And just before the break, he was talking about orgasmic yoga and his masturbation philosophy. So if you missed all that, you may want to listen to this show by going to Om Times Radio online to be able to receive this recording later on. And right now, I want to ask Jon a little bit more about his opinion about porn, because porn is something that a lot of people with penises especially use as a way to stimulate themselves visually. So what do you feel about porn, Jon?
I don't think porn's inherently bad. I don't think it's something that's terrible in terms of its concept. However, clearly the one thing that it does do, which I find very difficult, is the objectification of sex. Not just women. There is obviously the objectification of people with vulvas, but I think it's more general than that. I think it's the objectification of sex, and that it becomes a set of moves, a set of things that you need to do to actually reach ejaculation, and it creates so many unrealistic expectations of sex in all gender types, and I just feel that the damage that it does, particularly to younger people that see it, is quite significant, because it kind of desensitizes them from the heart connection, and there is porn out there that does portray that heart connection, but it's definitely in the minority, and I just feel that what's happening is that this movement of pornography is creeping lower and lower and lower down to younger and younger adults, to children, and it becomes their first experience of sex, and that decoupling of the heart connection is where I feel the most serious damage is being done. And so the context of coming from the heart with connection to others is completely lost, and is passed over to just a mechanical act, which is a beautiful act, and one that can bring so much, not just in terms of physical pleasure, but in terms of human to human connection, and ultimately connection to spirit. And those aspects of it get lost, and that really I see as my role in trying to make people aware that there are things beyond just that simple mechanical act, and those things are things of beauty.
Thank you for that. So I understand that you are also involved with the Cuddle Network, and you're talking about conscious touch in your work. So could you tell us a little bit about what you feel about cuddles and this movement of cuddle parties?
Yeah, I'm not associated with the any cuddle group other than my own. So cuddle party is a very, very big and reputable organisation. But what I really believe the importance of conscious touch is, and decoupling it from sex, is that people can actually connect to the fact that touch doesn't have to lead to sex. Touch is inherently pleasurable, and that the pleasure one can get from touch can be so good that you don't need to have sex as a result. You can actually feel good just by holding someone. And when I run workshops, particularly people with vulvas will say, "Oh, it's such a relief not to have any expectation put on me that this needs to lead to somewhere. That I can actually enjoy the touch for what it is without an agenda." And I have run workshops for people with penises as well, and quite remarkably, I found initially was that the people that were there said it's such a relief to actually let go of the competition for meeting people with vulvas. That jostling, I want to be with that person rather than this person. And so the sexual politics disappeared, and when the sexual politics disappeared, they could actually sink into the enjoyment of nurturing touch on a man-to-man basis and actually connect to that in a way that wasn't sexual. And we've had both straight, bi and gay people there, and removing the sexual politics enabled them to relax, and this relaxation is really coming from the pressure that sex and touch must go together, and so therefore if there's a touch it will always lead to sex. So being able to separate the two really makes this work powerful, and one can connect to the wonderful oxytocin that's generated in these sorts of workshops, and just connect to the joy and the pleasure and the beauty of being with people that there is no agenda other than to connect from the heart.
Beautiful. I really love what you're sharing, because I do get a lot of clients who avoid touch from their partners or their spouses, because every time there's touch, they're afraid that there's an expectation of sex, and then there's the pressure, and so they avoid touching each other. And they really like two ships passing in the night, because they're next to each other, they miss each other, and yet they're not touching each other because they're afraid of being triggered, and then the expectation of sex. So I love this idea of cuddling and going for a cuddle party. It's very important to have facilitators that are of integrity, who are able to hold the space and energy of the group. And for listeners out there who are interested to attend a cuddle party, I definitely invite you to look into the credentials and training and testimonials of these facilitators. And of course, I strongly recommend Jon, because I know him personally. And if you like how he sounds, I'm sure you're going to like how he looks in person.
Oh, thank you, Martha. Oh, I'm blushing.
Do you want to talk about how we're going to be working together?
Yeah, sure. I think one of the things that really drew me initially to Martha was her fantastic book, Orgasmic Yoga, and when we did connect, I just got on with you, Martha, just fantastically well, and we certainly not only had a lot of things that we agreed on in our work, but also socially. So, and the thing I particularly love about you is your wonderful sense of humour and the way that we can have a laugh and joke, and that rapport that we built up. We're going to experiment with a show which we will talk about sexual topics of the day. And those topics can be raised by us, but I think most importantly we really want them to come from listeners and just give our view on what those hot topics are for the audience.
Yeah. So Jon and I are going to be working together to create a new YouTube channel, and we're going to connect with each other, me in Singapore and him in Manchester, UK, via Zoom, and we're going to be answering questions that people have with regards to love, sex, and everything in between. And I'm very happy to be doing this with Jon because he is such a heart-based man, and I really love him a lot.
Thank you, Martha.
So this
it's
is
been
the
a
end
pleasure
of
to be with you.
Eros Evolution. So thank you so much, Jon, for coming on to today's show. And next week, I will be summarizing all the past 12 or 13 episodes or so of Eros Evolution. So stay tuned and be well this week. And in the meantime, this has been Dr. Martha Tara Lee of Eros Coaching. So take care and keep in touch.